Betha's heart hammered against her ribs as she stared down at her trembling hands, the blue glow of her phone illuminating a nightmare made real. The message from Do-hyun was still open, impossible to look at, more impossible to turn away from. Her mind replayed the image again and again, her restaurant, usually filled with the gentle chaos of clinking glasses and laughter, now transformed into a silent theater of fear. Through the window, Mrs. Kim sagged in her chair, tape muffling every sob, the flower shop owner's eyes pleading for help that might not come in time. Beside her sat Mr. Lee, the convenience store ajusi, whose gruff jokes had been the heartbeat of the block, now reduced to wide-eyed terror as his fate flickered in the hands of a madman. At the center, Do-hyun's twisted smile glinted like steel, the lighter flickering between his fingers, a tiny, dancing fire, arrogant enough to devour every memory, every living soul inside those walls. Every smell in the air seemed tainted with gasoline, sharp and unnatural. Betha could almost taste the fear, metallic on her tongue, threading through the silence of the room. Gia's hand clutched at her sleeve, knuckles white, as if she too felt the heat of flames that hadn't yet been lit. Betha squeezed back, grounding herself in the present, even as time itself spun away, each second pounding like war drums towards an ending she felt powerless to rewrite. If you were here with Betha right now, would your hands be steady? Hey, my love, you're right where you belong on Afro-Korean storytelling. If you're holding your breath, hit subscribe and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. That's the only way you can support this channel. Betha didn't remember making the decision to run. One moment she was staring at Gia's photograph on her phone screen, at the girl's oblivious smile as she walked home alone, unaware of the predator trailing her with a camera. The next moment, Betha was grabbing her coat, her keys, her phone, rushing out the door with such force it slammed against the wall. The stairs blurred beneath her feet. She nearly fell twice, catching herself on the railing with hands that shook so badly she could barely grip. Outside, the night air hit her like a slap, cold enough to burn her lungs, but she barely felt it. Her mind was white noise and terror, every thought dissolving before it could fully form except one. Gia. Get to Gia. She ran through streets she knew by heart, her breath coming in ragged gasps that turned to fog in the freezing air. Past the closed shops and the occasional drunk stumbling home, past the convenience store where the clerk watched her sprint by with mild curiosity. Her phone was in her hand, though she didn't remember taking it out, and she was calling Gia's number while her legs carried her toward the girl's neighborhood. Ring, ring, ring. Come on, Betha whispered, her voice breaking. Pick up. Please pick up. Honey. Gia's voice, confused but alive, beautifully alive. What's wrong? It's almost 11. Where are you? Betha couldn't stop running, couldn't slow down even though her lungs were screaming. Are you home? Are you safe? Yes, I'm home. I just walked in. Honey, you're scaring me. What happened? Relief hit Betha so hard she stumbled, catching herself against a telephone pole. Her vision swam. For a moment, she thought she might actually pass out right there on the sidewalk. Lock your door. All the locks. Don't open it for anyone except me. I'm coming to you. Why? What's going on? Just do it, please. She heard Gia moving, heard the sound of locks clicking into place. Okay, done. Now tell me what's happening. I'll explain when I get there. 10 minutes. Betha forced her legs to move again, slower now, but still urgent. Don't hang up. Stay on the phone with me. You're really freaking me out. I know. I'm sorry. Just talk to me. Tell me about your day. Gia started talking, her voice uncertain at first, then gradually steadying as she recounted the afternoon's customers, the Ajuma who'd complained about the spice level, the couple who'd left a generous tip. Betha listened to that young voice and felt something crack open in her chest. This girl, this innocent, kind girl who'd done nothing wrong except be loyal to the wrong boss. Now she was a target because Betha had failed to protect her, had failed to see that Do-hyun would go after anyone she cared about. The apartment building Gia shared with 3 other students looked quiet, normal. Betha took the stairs 2 at a time to the 2nd floor and knocked on the door marked 204. It's me, she said. The locks clicked open and Gia appeared, her face pale with worry. She took one look at Betha, sweating despite the cold, gasping for breath, wild-eyed, and pulled her inside. Sit down before you collapse. Gia ordered, steering her toward the worn couch that dominated the small living room. The apartment was tiny, shabby in the way all student housing was, but clean and decorated with the kind of cheap cheerfulness that young people specialized in. Posters on the walls, fairy lights strung across the ceiling, a dying plant someone kept forgetting to water. Betha collapsed onto the couch and tried to make her lungs work properly. Gia disappeared and returned with a glass of water, pressing it into Betha's shaking hands. Drink, then talk. Betha drank, the cold water shocking against her throat. Her heart was still hammering, but the panic was starting to recede enough that she could think again. What could she tell Gia? How much truth was safe versus how much would put the girl in more danger? Someone's been following you, Betha said finally. Taking pictures. I got a message tonight with your photo in it. Gia's face went from worried to frightened. Following me? Why? Who? It's complicated, and it's my fault. Someone is trying to hurt me by threatening people I care about. The words tasted like ash. I'm so sorry, Gia. You were never supposed to be involved in this. Involved in what? Honey, you're not making sense. Gia sat down beside her, close enough that their knees touched. Start from the beginning. The warehouse fire, the police, that man with the expensive car. Tell me everything. So Betha did. Not everything, not the parts that would make Gia an accomplice, but enough. The forged documents linking her to the explosion. Do Hyun's revenge plot. The fabricated evidence. The meeting demanded for tomorrow night. And now, the threat against Gia if Betha didn't comply with new terms she didn't fully understand yet. Gia listened in silence, her expression shifting from confusion to horror to anger. When Betha finished, the girl stood up and started pacing, her hands clenched into fists. This is insane, Gia said. This is actually insane. We need to go to the police right now. Tell them everything. I can't. All the evidence points to me. They'll arrest me before they investigate Do Hyun. Then what are you going to do? Just show up tomorrow night and hope this psycho doesn't hurt you? Hurt us? I'm working with someone who can help. The man you saw, Kang Jae-rin, he has resources, people who know how to handle situations like this. Gia stopped pacing and stared at her. Kang Jae-rin? I looked him up after you wouldn't tell me who he was. Do you know what people say about him online? The rumors about his businesses? I know what he is. And you trust him? Betha thought about that. Did she trust Jae-rin? Not entirely, not with everything, but she trusted that their interests aligned right now, that he wanted Do Hyun stopped as badly as she did. I trust that he doesn't want me dead or in prison. That's enough for now. That's not reassuring, Unnie. Nothing about this is reassuring. Betha stood up, her legs still unsteady but functional. Pack a bag, you're not staying here tonight. Where am I supposed to go? Good question. Betha's apartment wasn't safe. Do Hyun clearly knew where she lived. A hotel would leave a paper trail. Family or friends would just put more people at risk. She pulled out her phone, stared at it, then made a decision that felt both inevitable and terrifying. She dialed the number Jae-rin had called from earlier. He answered on the second ring. What's wrong? Not a question. A statement because he already knew something had happened just from the fact that she was calling at 11 at night. Do Hyun changed the terms, Betha said. He knows I told you. He's threatening my waitress now. Says she dies if I don't bring you to the meeting tomorrow. Silence on the other end. Then, where are you? At her apartment. She's safe for now, but stay there. I'm sending a call. 15 minutes. Where are you taking us? Somewhere Do-hyun can't reach. Somewhere I can keep you both alive until we end this. He paused. Pack light. You won't be going home for a few days. The line went dead. Betha looked at Jae, who was already moving toward her bedroom, having heard enough of the conversation to understand what was happening. We're really doing this, Gia said. We're really going into hiding with some possibly dangerous businessman because some other definitely dangerous man wants to frame you for terrorism or whatever. Apparently, my mother is going to kill me if I survive this. Despite everything, Betha almost smiled. Get your things, fast. They packed in tense silence, Gia throwing clothes and toiletries into a backpack, Betha hovering by the window, watching the street for any sign of watchers. The neighborhood looked peaceful, oblivious. Somewhere out there, Do-hyun was probably sleeping soundly, confident his trap was working perfectly. The car arrived in 12 minutes, not 15. Same vehicle as before, same silent driver. But this time there were 2 bodyguards instead of 1, and they swept the apartment with professional efficiency before allowing Betha and Gia to leave. "Is this really necessary?" Gia whispered as they were escorted down the stairs between 2 large men in dark suits. "Yes," one of the bodyguards said in accented Korean. It was the first word either had spoken. The drive took them away from the familiar neighborhoods, past the river, into areas of Seoul that Betha had only seen from highway overpasses. Buildings here wore their wealth like armor, all glass and steel and architectural statements that said money lives here in a language that transcended words. The car descended into another underground garage, this one even more pristine than the last, and they were ushered into an elevator that required 2 different key cards and a fingerprint scan. "Where are we?" Gia asked, her voice small in the elevator's hushed interior. "Safe," the driver answered. It seemed to be the only word any of these men knew. The elevator opened directly into an apartment, not a hallway with multiple units, just one massive space that occupied what must have been the entire floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over Seoul, spread beneath them like a circuit board of light. The furniture was that particular kind of expensive that looked uncomfortable, all sharp angles and unforgiving surfaces, more art than utility. Everything was white or gray or black, sterile as a hospital, cold as the winter outside. Jae-rin stood by the windows with his back to them, hands in his pockets, looking out at his city. He turned when they entered, and Betha saw he'd shed his usual armor of suits and professional distance. He wore jeans and a plain black sweater, barefoot on the marble floor, and somehow looked more dangerous like this. More real. "Miss Ease," he said. Then his gaze shifted to Gia. "You must be Min Gia." Gia stepped slightly behind Betha, instinct making her seek shelter. "How do you know my name?" "I make it my business to know the people in Miss Ease's life. It's not personal, just practical." He gestured to the bodyguards. "Show her to the guest room. Make sure she has everything she needs." "Wait," Gia grabbed Betha's arm. "I'm not leaving you alone with him." "It's okay," Betha said, even though she wasn't entirely sure that was true. "I'll be right down the hall. We just need to talk." "About how to keep me from getting murdered?" "Yes." Gia looked between them, clearly unhappy but out of options. Finally, she nodded and followed the bodyguards down a long hallway, disappearing through a door that closed with a soft, final click, leaving Betha alone with Jae-rin in his sterile palace above the city. "Drink?" he offered, moving to the bar that took up one entire wall. "It's almost midnight." That wasn't an answer. He poured 2 glasses of something amber without waiting for her response and held one out. "You've had a difficult night. This will help." Betha took the glass because refusing felt like showing weakness, and she'd shown enough of that already. The first sip burned her throat, then spread warmth through her chest. Expensive whiskey, the kind that tasted like smoke and oak and old money. "Tell me exactly what the message said," Jae-rin said, settling into one of those uncomfortable-looking chairs with the ease of someone who'd long since stopped noticing his own furniture. Betha recounted the texts, the photograph, the new demands. Jae-rin listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each detail. "He's escalating," Jae-rin said when she finished. "Faster than I expected. That suggests either desperation or a timeline I'm not aware of." "What timeline? What is he actually trying to accomplish beyond destroying you and me?" "That's what I've been trying to determine." Jae-rin stood and moved to a desk in the corner, returning with a tablet. He tapped the screen a few times and showed her what looked like financial records. Do-hyun stole approximately $3 million when he disappeared. That's a lot of money, but not enough to live comfortably forever, especially not if he plans to continue the lifestyle he was accustomed to, which means he's planning to use that money as capital for something larger. Like what? My initial assumption was that he'd try to muscle into one of my territories, use his knowledge of my operations to undercut me. But the warehouse explosion doesn't fit that pattern. Destroying inventory and drawing police attention hurts him as much as it hurts me. Jae-rin's finger moved across the tablet screen, pulling up more documents. Unless the destruction itself was the point. Unless he's trying to drive down the value of my assets so someone else can acquire them cheaply. Betha's tired brain struggled to follow. "You're saying someone is backing him? Someone who wants your businesses?" "It's the only explanation that makes sense." Do-hyun alone doesn't have the resources for this level of operation. The forged documents, the surveillance, the coordination that requires money and connections he shouldn't have. So who? That, Jae-rin said, setting the tablet aside, is what we need to find out tomorrow night. Because whoever is backing Do-hyun will likely make an appearance when they think they've won. The casual way he said it, like they were planning a business meeting instead of walking into a trap, made Betha's stomach clench. You really think we should still go to the bridge? I think we don't have a choice. Do-hyun has evidence that can destroy you, and now he has leverage against someone you care about. If we don't show up, he uses both. Jae-rin moved back to the windows, his reflection ghostly in the dark glass. But we won't be going in blind. My people have been monitoring Do-hyun's movements since this started. We know some of his associates, some of his safe houses. Tomorrow, we use the meeting to draw him and his backer into the open. And if it goes wrong, if someone gets hurt, he turned to face her fully, and his expression was harder than she'd ever seen it. Miss Ease, Betha, I've been in this kind of conflict before. Many times, people always get hurt. The only question is who and how badly, and whether you can live with the answer afterward. He paused. I can live with almost any answer as long as I win. The question is whether you can. Betha thought about that. About Gia sleeping down the hall, innocent and terrified. About her restaurant that might not exist this time next week. About her grandmother who'd believed Betha could build something lasting, something worth the risk of leaving everything familiar behind. I can live with whatever it takes to keep Gia safe and my name clear, she said. After that, I don't care what happens to Do-hyun or his backer or anyone else involved in this. Something like approval flickered in Jae-rin's eyes. Good. Then we understand each other. They stood there in the vast emptiness of his apartment, two people who should never have met becoming something like partners in the cold light of necessity. Outside the windows, Seoul continued its endless motion, millions of lives intersecting and diverging, most of them blissfully unaware that in a penthouse high above, plans were being made that might shake the city's underworld like an earthquake. The guest rooms are down the hall, Jae-rin said finally, second and third doors on the left. Your waitress is in the second. You'll take the third. My room is at the end if you need anything, though my people will be stationed throughout the apartment all night. Are we prisoners or guests? Whichever helps you sleep better. He moved toward the hallway, then paused. For what it's worth, I am sorry you're involved in this. You're collateral damage in a war you didn't start and don't fully understand. If there was a way to resolve this without putting you in danger, I would take it. But there isn't. No, there isn't. Betha followed him down the hallway, her footsteps muffled by carpet thick enough to swallow sound. He stopped at the third door and opened it for her. The guest room was beautiful in the same cold way as the rest of the apartment. King-sized bed with crisp white linens, ensuite bathroom visible through a half-open door, another wall of windows looking out at the glittering city. Everything perfect and impersonal, like a very expensive hotel room designed for temporary occupation by people passing through without leaving marks. There are clothes in the closet that should fit, Jae-rin said. Toiletries in the bathroom. If you need anything else, use the phone on the nightstand. Extension 7. You keep guest clothes on hand? I keep many things on hand. It's called being prepared. He turned to leave, then stopped in the doorway. Betha, yes? Tomorrow night, when we're on that bridge, things may happen quickly. If I tell you to run, don't question it. Don't hesitate. Just run and keep running until my people find you. Can you promise me that? The earnestness in his voice surprised her. This wasn't the cold businessman or the calculating strategist. This was someone who'd seen enough people die that he was trying to prevent one more. I promise, she said. He nodded once and left, closing the door quietly behind him. Betha stood alone in the sterile perfection of the guest room and felt the full weight of the day crash over her like a wave. Her legs gave out and she sat on the bed, then lay back staring at the ceiling. Somewhere in this building, Gia was probably doing the same thing, wondering how their normal lives had transformed into this nightmare so quickly. Her phone buzzed. Betha pulled it from her pocket, expecting another threat from Do-hyun. Instead, it was a message from an unknown number with a photograph attached. The image showed a man, older, well-dressed, photographed from a distance but clear enough to make out his features. Korean, maybe 60s, with the kind of face that spoke of power held so long it had become unconscious. He was getting into an expensive car surrounded by bodyguards, looking every inch the kingmaker. The message beneath the photo was brief. This is who's backing Do-hyun. Name, Park Sung-min. Real estate mogul, city council connections, suspected ties to organized crime. Wants my territory, uses Do-hyun as his attack dog. Tomorrow night he'll be watching. K. Betha stared at the photograph, at the face of the man who'd casually decided her life was acceptable collateral in his business expansion. He looked so ordinary. That was what struck her most. How normal he appeared, like someone's grandfather, like the kind Ajusi who ran the fruit stand on her corner. But men like that didn't order explosions and frame innocent people. Men like that didn't exist in her world, or at least they weren't supposed to, except now they did. Now her world had expanded to include people who destroyed lives with the same casualness other people chose what to eat for breakfast. Another message arrived, sleep if you can. Tomorrow will be long. Betha set her phone on the nightstand and closed her eyes, knowing sleep wouldn't come but trying anyway. Her mind spun through scenarios, each one worse than the last. Do-hyun and Park Sung-min laying their trap. Jae-rin's people trying to spring it. Her and Jia caught in the middle when it all went wrong. Because it would go wrong. That was the only certainty she had. Plans like this always went wrong in some way, and people paid the price in blood and consequences. She must have dozed eventually because she woke to voices in the hallway. Low, urgent, speaking rapid Korean too fast for her half-asleep brain to follow. Betha slipped out of bed and cracked open the door. Jae-rin stood with 3 of his bodyguards, all of them focused on a tablet one of them held. Even from this distance, Betha could tell something had changed. The tension radiated off them like heat. What time? Jae-rin was asking. 20 minutes ago. Security footage shows, show me. They noticed Betha standing in the doorway. The conversation stopped immediately, all eyes turning to her. What happened? She asked. Jae-rin's expression was carved from stone. Do-hyun made another move. One of my warehouses across the river, the one storing actual legitimate inventory, just caught fire. Deliberate arson based on preliminary reports. More evidence to connect to me? Probably, but also a distraction. He glanced at his watch. He's moving faster than expected, which means tomorrow night might not be about negotiation at all. Then what? Jae-rin looked at her, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw something like fear in his eyes. Not for himself, he'd moved past personal fear long ago, she suspected, but for what was coming, for what might be lost. A trap, he said simply. Not just for you or me, for everyone, and I think we just ran out of time to prepare. Down the hall, a door opened. Jia appeared, wrapped in a robe too large for her, hair disheveled from sleep. Ani, what's going on? Why is everyone awake? Before Betha could answer, every phone in the apartment buzzed simultaneously. The sound was jarring in the quiet, like an alarm going off in a church. Jae-rin looked at his screen. His face went white. What? Betha demanded. What is it? He turned the phone toward her. The message was simple, brutal, impossible to misunderstand. Change of plans. Your restaurant, 1 hour, bring the girl and come alone, or I burn it to the ground with everyone inside. I have hostages. You know I'm not bluffing. Attached was a photograph that made Betha's heart stop completely. Her restaurant, the lights on, and through the window, visible in the warm glow, tied to chairs with tape over their mouths, 3 people she recognized. Mrs. Kim from the flower shop next door, Mr. Lee, the Ajusi who ran the convenience store, and sitting at the table between them, smiling at the camera like this was all some wonderful game, was Do-hyun, holding a lighter. Standing next to containers that could have held anything. Gasoline, chemicals. Something that would turn E's table and everyone in it into an inferno. Oh my God, Jia whispered. Jae-rin was already moving, shouting orders to his people, grabbing his coat. We leave now, everyone. Full tactical response, this is happening now. But he said come alone, Betha started. He's not giving you a choice. He's ending this tonight his way. If we don't move immediately, people die. Jae-rin grabbed her shoulders, his grip tight enough to hurt. Do you understand? This isn't the bridge tomorrow. This is your restaurant in, he checked his phone, 53 minutes. And if we're not there, he lights the match. The world tilted. Betha felt Jia grab her hand. felt the solid weight of Jae-rin's grip, felt the apartment around her dissolving into chaos as bodyguards rushed to prepare. And all she could see was that photograph. Her restaurant, her neighbors, Do-hyun's smile, the lighter in his hand, and the clock counting down to when everything she'd built, everything she cared about, everyone she'd inadvertently put in danger would burn. They had less than an hour, and this time there was no plan, no backup. Just a race through Seoul's midnight streets toward a trap that was already closing, toward flames that were already lit, toward an ending that had been written the moment Do-hyun decided Betha-ease was acceptable collateral in someone else's war. The elevator doors closed on them, Betha, Gia, Jae-rin, and 4 armed men, descending toward whatever waited at the bottom. And in her pocket, Betha's phone buzzed one final time. 49 minutes. The clock is ticking. Better hurry. The city became a blur of neon and darkness. Betha sat rigid in the back seat. Gia pressed against her side, both of them silent as the car tore through Seoul's midnight streets at speeds that should have been illegal. Maybe they were. Maybe laws stopped mattering when you were racing against a countdown to prevent murder. Jae-rin sat in front, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in rapid Korean too fast and too technical for Betha to follow. Coordinates, positions, tactical something. The language of people who knew how to wage war in urban spaces, who'd done this before, who understood that violence had its own grammar and syntax. 41 minutes, one of the bodyguards said from the driver's seat, his eyes flicking to the dashboard clock. Gia's hand found Betha's in the darkness, squeezing so hard it hurt. The girl was shaking, her breathing shallow and quick like she might hyperventilate at any moment. Betha squeezed back, trying to transmit a confidence she absolutely did not feel. Kim has a daughter in Busan, Gia whispered. Mr. Lee just became a grandfather last month. He showed me pictures. They'll be fine, Betha said, and the lie tasted like poison. We'll get there in time. How can you know that? She couldn't. That was the truth that sat between them, heavy and terrible. They couldn't know anything except that somewhere across this city, 3 innocent people were tied to chairs in her restaurant, waiting to see if help would arrive before the flames did. Because Do-hyun had made his message clear. This wasn't about negotiation anymore. This was about punishment. About making Betha watch everything she cared about burn before he finished her off himself. The car swerved around a corner, tires squealing. Through the window, Betha caught glimpses of Seoul's nightlife. Young people stumbling out of Noribang, couples walking hand in hand, a street vendor packing up his cart. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that a few kilometers away, something terrible was unfolding in the cold darkness. Jae-rin ended his call and turned to face them. In the passing streetlights, his expression was harder than stone, sharper than glass. My people are already moving into position, he said. Snipers on the surrounding rooftops, ground team approaching from the alley. The moment we have clear shots, we take them. What about the hostages? Betha asked. If shooting starts, my people are professionals. They don't miss. His voice was cold, certain, the tone of someone who'd ordered violence before and would again. But Do-hyun will have anticipated tactical response. He'll have positioned himself where we can't reach him easily, likely with one of the hostages as a shield. So what's the plan? You walk in, alone. Keep him talking while we move into position. Betha's stomach dropped. You want me to be bait? I want you to be a distraction. There's a difference. Jae-rin's eyes were steady on hers. Do-hyun wants to see you suffer. That gives us time. While he's focused on you, on gloating and making threats, my people will be finding angles, eliminating his advantages, waiting for the moment when we can extract the hostages without casualties. And if that moment never comes, then I go in after you, and we handle it the messy way. He said it so casually, like discussing menu options rather than potential bloodshed. But it won't come to that. Do-hyun is arrogant. Arrogant people make mistakes when they think they've already won. 37 minutes, the driver announced. The car was approaching Mapogu now, entering territory Betha knew by heart. These were her streets, her neighborhood, the places she walked every day. Except now they looked different, threatening, unfamiliar, like a home that had been invaded and transformed into enemy territory. What about me? Gia asked suddenly. He said, bring me. If Ani goes in alone, you stay in the car, Jae-rin said firmly. Protected. Out of sight, Do-hyun asked for you to pressure Miss Easy, but he doesn't actually need you there. He just needs her to think he might hurt you. So I just sit here while Unnie walks into that? Yes. That's not fair. Fair stopped mattering about 3 hours ago. Jae-rin's voice was hard but not unkind. Miss Min, I understand you want to help, but the best thing you can do for your boss right now is stay safe so she doesn't have to worry about you while she's in there. Can you do that? Gia's jaw clenched, but she nodded. Her grip on Betha's hand tightened even more if that was possible. I'll be okay, Betha said, and it might have been the biggest lie she'd ever told. The car slowed as they entered the street where E's table stood. 2 blocks away, Jae-rin ordered the driver to stop. They couldn't get closer without being obvious, without alerting Do-hyun that they'd brought an entire tactical team. From here, you walk, Jae-rin said, already climbing out. My people are in position. I'll be listening through this. He held up what looked like a small earpiece, then handed an identical one to Betha. Put it in, deep as it will go. It's nearly invisible, but don't touch it once it's in. If Do-hyun searches you, he might find it, but by then we'll hopefully be close enough that it won't matter. Betha fitted the earpiece, feeling the strange intrusion of the device nestling into her ear canal. Her own heartbeat suddenly seemed deafening, amplified by the small piece of technology. Can you hear me? Jae-rin's voice came through, crystal clear despite him standing right in front of her. She nodded. Good. Remember, keep him talking. The longer you can stretch the conversation, the better our position becomes. Ask him questions. Make him explain his plan. Appeal to his ego. Men like Do-hyun love to gloat when they think they've won. And if he just shoots me the moment I walk in? He won't. He wants this to last. He wants you to understand how completely you've lost before he finishes it. Jae-rin's hand moved to her shoulder, gripping once. Betha, you can do this. You're stronger than he thinks. Use that. She wanted to believe him, wanted to feel brave and capable and ready for what was coming. Instead, she felt terrified, exhausted, completely out of her depth in a situation that should never have involved her at all. But Mrs. Kim and Mr. Lee didn't have the luxury of her fear. They were in there because of her, because Do-hyun had chosen her restaurant as his battlefield. And Gia was here, shaking and frightened because Betha had failed to see the danger until it was too late. So she nodded, stepped away from the car, started walking toward her restaurant while Gia's muffled sob followed her into the darkness. The street was eerily quiet. Most of the shops were closed, their metal shutters pulled down against the night. The few that remained open, a convenience store, a bar, a late-night restaurant, cast pools of light that Betha skirted around, keeping to the shadows as much as possible. Ed's table glowed ahead like a lighthouse, every light inside burning bright. Through the windows, she could see them. Mrs. Kim and Mr. Lee, still tied to chairs, their faces pale with fear. And Do-hyun, pacing between them like a predator in a cage, phone in one hand, lighter in the other. Betha's legs wanted to stop moving, wanted to turn around, run, disappear into the soul night, and never look back. But she forced them forward, one step after another, until she stood in front of her own door. The handle turned under her hand, unlocked, inviting her inside. She pushed it open and stepped into her restaurant. The smell hit her first. Gasoline, sharp and chemical, making her eyes water. Do-hyun had poured it everywhere, she realized. The floor glistened with it. The tables, the chairs, even the walls showed dark streaks where he'd splashed the accelerant with artistic thoroughness. One spark and this whole place would become an inferno in seconds. Betha, Mrs. Kim's voice, muffled by the tape but still audible. The older woman's eyes were wide with terror, tears streaming down her face. Mr. Lee sat perfectly still, but Betha could see him shaking. The proud Ajusi who'd always treated her kindly, who'd never once made her feel foreign or unwelcome, reduced to this, tied and terrified and waiting for rescue or death. Right on time, Do-hyun said, smiling that same pleasant smile from the photograph. Up close, Betha could see he looked tired, stressed, like someone who'd been running on adrenaline and ambition for too long. The scar above his eyebrow was more prominent than she remembered. I was starting to worry you wouldn't care enough about your neighbors to show up. Let them go, Betha said, and was surprised by how steady her voice sounded. This is between you and me. They have nothing to do with it. But that's where you're wrong. Everything has to do with everything else. That's what you people never understand. Actions have consequences, ripples. You involve yourself with Kang Jae-rin, you bring his world into yours, and suddenly your neighbors become collateral. He gestured at the bound pair with his lighter. Cause and effect, Miss Ease. Basic philosophy. Keep him talking. Jae-rin's voice whispered in her ear, so quiet she barely heard it. We need 2 more minutes. Why are you doing this? Betha asked, taking a small step forward. Not too close. The gasoline fumes were already making her dizzy, but close enough to hold Do-hyun's attention. What did Jae-rin do to you that's worth all this? Do-hyun's smile faltered. Good. She'd touched something raw. What did he do? Do-hyun repeated, and his voice dripped with bitterness. He treated me like I was nothing. 15 years I worked for him. 15 years of loyalty, of making him money, of handling problems he was too precious to dirty his own hands with. And when I asked for what I'd earned, a real position, real power, real respect, he told me I wasn't ready, that I lacked judgment. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Lacked judgment. From a man who built his empire on violence and intimidation and calling it business. So this is revenge. This is justice. I'm taking what should have been mine all along. His territory, his connections, his empire. And when I'm done, Kang Jae-rin will have nothing but the memory of everything he lost because he was too arrogant to recognize talent standing right in front of him. Betha watched him pace, watched the lighter catch the fluorescent light with each gesture. He was enjoying this, she realized, this moment of power, of having someone listen to his grievances, of finally being the one in control. But why me? She pressed. I'm nobody, a chef. What did I ever do to you? You? Do-hyun stopped, focused on her fully for the first time. You're perfect, actually. Foreign, isolated, vulnerable. The ideal scapegoat. Plus, framing you for the warehouse explosion served multiple purposes. It occupied police attention, damaged Kang's reputation, and gave me leverage when I needed it. You should be honored, really. Most people are just obstacles to be removed. You got to be useful. 1 minute, Jae-rin whispered in her ear. Betha took another step, and Do-hyun's hand tightened on the lighter. That's close enough, he warned. I'm not going to do anything. I just want to understand. The warehouse that exploded, what was really in there? You said construction supplies. But it took more than that to cause an explosion like what happened. Do-hyun's smile widened, pleased that she'd asked. Clever girl, you're right, of course. The construction supplies were a front. Kang was storing other materials there. Materials he didn't want traced back to his legitimate businesses. When I set the charges, the secondary explosions were quite spectacular. More than I'd anticipated, actually. Charges? Betha's blood went cold. You mean it wasn't an accident at all? You deliberately... Of course I deliberately said it. How else would I ensure maximum damage and create the perfect frame for you? Do-hyun tilted his head. Though I'll admit I had help with the technical aspects. Someone with expertise in that particular field. 30 seconds. Jae-rin's voice tighter now. Who helped you? Betha asked, though part of her already suspected the answer. Park Sung-min? Park provided funding and connections, but the technical work? Do-hyun checked his watch. That required someone with inside knowledge of Kang's operations. Someone who knew exactly where to place explosives for maximum effect. Someone Kang trusted? The restaurant door opened behind Betha. She turned, expecting to see Jae-rin or his tactical team. Instead, a man she'd seen before stepped inside. One of the bodyguards who'd been with Jae-rin from the beginning. The one who'd driven her home that first night. The one who'd told her to watch the shadows, not the lights. He was holding a gun pointed directly at her. Hello, Miss Easy, he said in that accented Korean she'd noticed before. I'm sorry it has to be this way. You seem like a nice person, but business is business. Betha's mind went blank with shock. She looked at Do-hyun, who was smiling wider than ever. Looked at the bodyguard, the traitor. Looked at the gun. Meet Min Seok, Do-hyun said, Kang's head of security for the past 8 years. Also, as it turns out, my partner in all of this, he's been feeding me information, helping me stay one step ahead, ensuring that every trap Kang thought he was setting was actually a trap for him. No, Betha whispered. Jae-rin trusted you. All his people? Trust is such a fragile thing, Min Seok said, almost sadly. Kang Jae-rin trusted me because I was good at my job, because I never gave him reason to doubt, because I was patient, 8 years of patience, waiting for the right opportunity. He glanced at Do-hyun. When Do-hyun approached me with his plan, I saw that opportunity. A chance to profit from Kang's downfall rather than go down with him. In her ear, Betha heard chaos. Jae-rin's voice, sharp and commanding, giving orders. Other voices responding. The sound of movement, urgency, plans falling apart in real time as they realized one of their own had betrayed them. "Your boss is listening, isn't he?" Do-hyun asked, noticing something in Betha's expression. "Through that little earpiece you think we don't know about?" "Hello, Kang. Surprise. Min Seok's been mine for months now. Every plan you made, every tactical decision, every safe house and backup protocol, I knew about all of it before you even implemented it. You never had a chance." "The snipers on the roofs?" Min Seok added conversationally. "I gave them positions that have no clear shot into this restaurant. The ground team in the alley? They're about to find the back exit blocked and rigged with enough explosives to level this entire block. And your precious tactical advantage?" He smiled. "Gone. All of it. You're not rescuing anyone tonight." Betha felt the world tilting beneath her. Everything Jae-rin had promised, the backup, the protection, the careful planning, all of it had been compromised from the inside. They'd walked into this thinking they had the advantage, when really they'd been playing a game where the other side knew every move before they made it. "So what now?" she asked, surprised her voice still worked. "You kill us all, set the fire, and walk away?" "Not quite," Do-hyun said. "Min Seok is going to escort you and Kang to a secondary location, somewhere private where we can have a longer conversation about transferring assets and signing documents. The hostages?" He glanced at Mrs. Kim and Mr. Lee. "They stay here, insurance, to ensure your cooperation. If either you or Kang tries anything, Min Seok makes a phone call and someone lights this place up. Simple. And if we cooperate, if Jae-rin signs whatever you want, then maybe your neighbors survive this. Maybe you do too, but that depends entirely on how reasonable Kang chooses to be." Do-hyun checked his watch again. "He should be arriving right about..." The door burst open. Jae-rin stood there, flanked by two bodyguards Betha hadn't seen before. His face was carved from ice and fury, his eyes locked on Min Seok with an intensity that could have ignited the gasoline fumes through sheer force of will. "Min Seok," he said, and his voice was so quiet it was terrifying. 8 years. I trusted you with my life, with the lives of everyone in my organization." "I know," Min Seok replied, and he actually sounded regretful. "You were a good employer, Kang. Fair, mostly. Generous with those who served you well, but you're also a sinking ship. Park Sung-min's consortium has been moving into your territories for months. Your suppliers are jumping to better offers. Your protection rackets are falling apart. I chose to leave before the ship went under completely. Surely you can understand that." "What I understand," Jae-rin said, taking a step forward, "is that you're a dead man. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. You know too much about how I operate. You're a liability I can't afford to leave alive. That's why I made sure to have insurance. Copies of everything, financial records, operational details, names of every corrupt official you've ever paid off. If anything happens to me, it all goes public. You'll be destroyed legally if you can't be destroyed any other way." The standoff stretched between them, taut as a wire about to snap. Betha stood frozen, caught between the two men, and their history of trust turned to poison. The gasoline smell was making her nauseous, or maybe that was just fear. "Let's all calm down," Do-hyun said, clearly enjoying himself. "Kang, you're here. Miss Easy is here. We can proceed with our business discussion like civilized people. Min Seok, lower the gun. We don't need it yet." But Min Seok's weapon stayed pointed at Betha. "No offense, but I trust Kang Jae-rin about as far as I can throw him. The gun stays up until we're somewhere more secure." "Fair enough." Do-hyun pulled out his phone. "Then let's..." The window exploded. Glass showered inward as something came crashing through. Not a bullet, but a canister that hit the floor and immediately started spewing thick white smoke. Then another window shattered and another until the restaurant was filling with smoke so dense Betha couldn't see 3 feet in front of her. Chaos erupted, shouting in Korean from multiple directions, gunfire cracking through the smoke. Bodies moving, colliding, fighting in the blind confusion. Hands grabbed Betha, whose she couldn't tell, and dragged her toward the floor. She heard Mrs. Kim screaming, Mr. Lee's chair clattering as he tried to move. More gunfire, deafening in the enclosed space. "Stay down!" Jae-rin's voice close to her ear. He'd found her in the smoke somehow. "Don't move, don't..." An explosion. Not huge, but loud enough to make her ears ring. The back of the restaurant where Min Seok had said the exit was rigged. Someone had triggered it, or maybe it had gone off accidentally in the chaos. The smoke was starting to clear, pulled toward the new opening where the back wall had been. Betha could see shapes now, figures moving through the dissipating haze. Do-hyun was gone. The space where he'd been standing was empty. Min Seok was on the ground, bleeding from somewhere, one of Jae-rin's men standing over him with a gun. And tied to their chairs in the middle of the devastation, somehow miraculously unharmed, were Mrs. Kim and Mr. Lee, their eyes wide with shock but still breathing, still alive. "Get them out," Jae-rin commanded. "Now, medical team is 2 blocks away. Go." His people moved fast, cutting the restraints, lifting the 2 hostages and carrying them toward the shattered front windows. Betha watched them disappear into the night, into safety, and felt something in her chest unclench slightly. But only slightly, because Jae-rin was kneeling beside Min Seok now, his expression colder than Betha had ever seen it. The wounded man was trying to speak, blood bubbling at his lips. "Where's Do-hyun?" Jae-rin demanded. "Where did he go?" Min Seok laughed wetly. "Doesn't matter. He's just one piece. Park Sung-min has others. You can't stop all of them. Watch me." "The evidence against Miss E's already delivered. Police will have it by morning." "You lost." Jae-rin leaned closer, his voice dropping to something that made Betha's skin crawl. "I've lost much worse than this and survived. You, on the other hand?" He stood nodding to one of his men. "Make sure he gets medical attention. I want him alive to stand trial for what he's done." He turned to Betha, who was still sitting on the gasoline-soaked floor, her whole body shaking with shock and adrenaline crash. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice gentling slightly. I don't think so." "Good, we need to leave. Now, this place will be swarming with police in minutes, and we need to control the narrative before they do." Betha let him help her to her feet. Through the broken windows, she could see Seoul waking up to the violence. Lights turning on in apartments, people emerging to see what had caused the explosion, the distant wail of sirens growing closer. Her restaurant, her dream. Destroyed in a single night by men playing games with other people's lives. "The arsonist," she said numbly. "The one who actually set the charges at the warehouse. You said someone with technical expertise, someone Jae-rin trusted." "Min Seok," Jae-rin confirmed, his jaw tight. He had access to everything. He could have planted evidence anywhere, destroyed anything. 8 years of loyalty, and it was all a lie waiting to be activated. "So we still have no proof. The police will still think I'm involved." "Not quite." Jae-rin pulled out his phone, showing her a video file. "While Min Seok was busy pointing guns at you, my people were recording everything. His confession, Do-hyun's admissions, all of it on camera, multiple angles. It won't clear you immediately, but it's a start." Betha stared at the phone screen, at the footage of her restaurant's final moments as a crime scene rather than a business. At Min Seok's betrayal captured in high definition. At Do-hyun's escape immortalized in digital certainty. "Come on," Jae-rin said. "Before the police arrive, I'll handle them, but you need to not be here when they do." "Why not? I'm the victim. This is my restaurant." "Because right now, you're still a suspect in their eyes. Let me clean this up first. Provide the evidence in the right order. Control how the story gets told." He was already guiding her toward the door. "Trust me, please." Trust. That word again. Trust that had been betrayed by Min Seok. Trust that Do-hyun had violated. Trust that Betha was being asked to give again to a man whose world kept hurting her no matter how hard he tried to protect her. But what choice did she have? She let Jae-rin lead her out into the cold Seoul night, away from her destroyed restaurant, into a car that appeared from nowhere with Gia already inside, crying and reaching for her. "My loves, pause here for a moment. Which narrator's voice are you connecting with more? Chapter 1 or right now? Drop your thoughts in the comments." As they drove away, Betha looked back one final time at Easy Table, at the broken windows and the smoke damage and the police cars beginning to arrive, at 3 years of her life reduced to evidence in someone else's war. And in her mind, one thought kept circling, terrible and inescapable. Min Seok had been one of Jae-rin's most trusted men for 8 years. 8 years of loyalty that turned out to be a lie. How many others were there? How many more betrayals were waiting to unfold? How could they possibly win a war when they couldn't even trust the people on their own side? The car turned a corner and easy table disappeared from view. But the questions remained, hanging in the air between Betha and Jae-rin like smoke that wouldn't clear. And somewhere in Seoul's endless night, Do-hyun was smiling. Because even though he'd lost this battle, even though Min Seok had been exposed, he'd accomplished something worse. He'd planted the seed of doubt that would grow and spread and poison everything it touched. Who else in Jae-rin's organization was secretly working for Park Sung-min? How deep did the betrayal go? And could Betha Ease really trust the man sitting beside her when his most trusted bodyguard had just tried to kill them both? The answer terrified her more than any lighter or gasoline or explosion ever could, because the answer was she didn't know. She didn't know anything anymore, except that tomorrow she'd have to keep fighting anyway, even though she had no idea who the real enemy was. Betha doesn't know who to trust anymore. Min Seok was a lie. Do-hyun's still out there. You made it through 50 minutes with me. Hit that like and subscribe so you don't miss part 4. This war is just getting started. If you haven't seen the previous parts, check the description. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I'll see you then, my loves.